Hi gamers, it's Marina.
And Fancy.
And today we're looking at some new Hearthstone announcements. Buddies are coming back. Today in this video, we're gonna look at the brand new buddies and the returning buddies. We're gonna focus on those minion types. We're gonna look at other minions and hero changes in another video. So if you want to catch that, you can find that one. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about all the buddies here today. So let's jump on in. Buddies are back. Well, I guess they're coming back in a couple days, probably. Blizzard just announced today some fun news we woke up to. Buddies are coming back, which is really exciting if you have never had the chance to try them out. It's a pretty cool mechanic, and if you have, you know, let us know if you're excited for buddies coming back. But yeah, if you don't know what buddies are, basically, buddies are special minions that you will be getting based on your hero that you choose. And they're supposed to be pretty strong to synergize with your hero and give you some sort of special extra advantage that makes your hero choice feel stronger. I think some are stronger than others, and you can also see that based on the way that they are tiered. Because buddies, just like normal minions, have tiers, which kind of is relative to their strength and kind of how game-changing they can be. But yeah, let's take a look.
Also, we should mention that this is the first time that buddies will be introduced into duos, as well as solo queue. So this is their introduction into duos mode, so that should make things very interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. I think it's a real neat way to shake up duos. If this is your first time catching our videos, we primarily stream and make a duos content together. So that's the side of Battlegrounds that we play primarily. So that'll be real fun to showcase. So to kind of show you off, they have an animation here that shows you. There will be a little button to the left of your hero, and buddies cost gold. Okay. And it costs more gold than you can spend in the beginning to get them, so after a few turns, the price will be reduced. It goes down based on whether you win or tie a combat, or if you lose a combat. So if you win or tie a combat, the price will go down by 3 gold next turn. If you lose, it goes down by 2. So this new buddy pricing system really incentivizes going for strong early game combat wins if you really want your buddy early. To give you that extra advantage. So I find when buddies in the tavern, there tends to be a bit more aggression early on. The first time you press the button, you will get 1 buddy, and then the second time you press the button, you get 2 more copies, which if you have your buddy from the first time, you'll get a golden version of your buddy. Most of the time, this is probably what you'll want. For some buddies, you might get rid of your first one before you get the other ones, and you can just cycle them out as needed. Although we'll see, this usually happened with battle cry effects, and as we go through and look at some changes of the buddies, we can see that some got changed. So sometimes before you would cycle battle cries, and now you're not doing that, and we'll see. We'll look in a second and show you how that happens. Also, something to note here, they say they are adding 10 seconds to all turn timers in duos, which means those games are going to feel a bit longer, but I think that's a good thing.
I think that should just stay.
Yeah, I do feel like duos
temporarily
turns...
adding, so I'm hoping that they decide to just leave it.
I agree. Duos turns, especially when you're, like we do, we create content where we're queued up together in call, we can discuss what we're doing. It's really nice to have the extra time. There's plenty of time where that extra 10 seconds could, have made or broken a turn. So I'm looking forward to that. And let's hop into looking at the new buddies. So they say there's 12 new heroes since the last time we had buddies. So that's a lot, right? I didn't realize that Hogger never had a buddy, but we're starting with Captain Hogger's buddy, the Shining Sailor, which is a tier 5 3/6 pirate. After you buy a pirate, gain +1/+1 and add a pirate to the tavern. This already seems really good for Hogger, right? In particular, Hogger is all about cycling pirates. every time you buy a pirate, you gain an extra gold immediately. That's how Captain Hogger works. So this incentivizes and gives you, you know, additional stats off of doing that cycling, which is going to be, I think, really cool to see. I think Hogger is already a pretty strong hero, and I think this is just going to push him to be even stronger. Next, we have Inga, the Iron Hymn, who has Solemn Serenader, a tier 3 undead. It is a 4/3. After you use your hero power on a minion, it gains half of this minion's attack. Swaps to health next turn. And what's going to be happening is it's going to be giving half of its attack to whatever you decide to hero power. And I'm assuming if you hero power the Solemn Serenader, it's just going to double its attack, right? Well, I guess not double its attack, but it'll go up by 50%. And if you're able to get stats on this thing, health stats, this is a nice way to get health stats on some minions. I don't know whether this is going to push Inga players to playing primarily undead, because undead attack scaling will scale on this thing, which will further make its effect stronger. But I don't know if that's going to be worth it, or if you're going to see this in more Menagerie, or you're just going to see this with something else. Or if potentially you're gonna see this one getting tossed away in the mid to late game.
I think it'd be good to use it to put health on things like Primus and Sister Death Whisper, things that you want to keep alive on your undead boards. I can see that being a thing.
Yeah, especially if you're able to get an early Death Whisper, Sister Death Whisper, and get those extra stats on this thing, then you can get some pretty strong stats going on. All right, next we have Rockmaster Voon, and Rockmaster Voon is getting Achille the Rock Rhino. Okay.
Which this one to me seems very OP.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So this is a 5/5 beast. I find it interesting that basically all of these new buddies have typing. You see a lot of buddies in the original pool that are not typed. So the fact that these all have typing is interesting, because just giving a minion a type is always a little buff, even if it doesn't seem like it, because of synergies. But this is a 5/5 beast. At the end of every 2 turns, get a plain copy of the leftmost card in your hand. So Voon already, the way Voon works is every 3 turns, at the end, you'll get a plain copy of the leftmost card in your hand. So basically, every 3rd turn, you want to make sure you're holding on to something, and Voon will copy it. Well, now, with a Kali on your board, what's going to happen is you're going to copy on the 2nd turn, as well as the 3rd turn from your hero power, right? And if you make this thing golden, at the end of every turn, get a plain copy of the leftmost card in your hand. That's pretty strong. And then you have to keep in mind, if you're running a Drakari Enchantress, which will double your end of turn effects, that basically means that if you have a golden Akali and a Drakari on your board, whatever you're holding on the leftmost card will be golden next turn, unless it's a spell, of course. But if it's a minion, you're basically just turning it into a golden minion next turn. So this is a Akali plus Drakari is a golden minion discovery generator, right? That's pretty neat. As always, though, with anything where you have to hold a card in your hand, you're not playing it, so you do have some trade-off where that turn you're not playing whatever it might be. Sometimes that's a make it or break it with you win or lose a turn, but hopefully if you're getting those extra cards, the chances of you losing goes away pretty quickly if you're building strength there. All right, Thorim, our boy Thorim Stormlord. We love Thorim. Thorim is the hero that lets you discover a tier 7 at the beginning of your turn. And tier 7s are the only way to get a tier 7 is with Thorim. Well, now it looks like he has a pretty good buddy. Varanus Stormlord's Mount, which is a tier 3 dragon. Again, typed to dragon, which Thorim dragons seem pretty good now. What this does is at the end of your turn, transform the minion to the left of this into one from a tier higher, up to tier 7. Now, this might seem strange at first, because whatever the minion is to the left, it's going to lose all the enchantments. It's just going to become a plain copy of a minion. If you have stuff on your board and you don't want something to get, you know, turned into a different minion, you obviously wouldn't play this next to it. However, if you get this early, keep in mind it's a tier 3, which means it's going to be priced cheaper than a lot of other buddies. If you get this early, you're going to be able to just every turn slowly scale something up into a turn 6. That could be really good for your board. Or you can turn it into a tier 7. So now Thorum has a way to get multiple tier 7s on his board, which is that's really strong, I think. Especially because you have things like Moira, which is double Battlecry and Death Rattle, like Champion of Sargeras. I don't know, Fen will put up a picture. But the tier 7 demon,
I believe.
yeah. The tier 7 demon gives you a +10/+10 to everything in the tavern. That's a pretty decent one to roll into, right? And then you can buy a bunch of minions. And the thing is, if you don't want to keep a minion, right? Let's say you're playing Thorum, you get your Obsidian Ravager, you're excited to play your Obsidian Ravager, then you get your buddy here. You can basically just spend time cycling tier 7s to the left of this until you get another Obsidian Ravager, so that you can try to get a golden version. And if you look at the golden version of Varanus, at the end of your turn, transform this minion to the left of this into one from 2 tiers higher. The other thing to think about is this is an end of turn effect. So if you have a Drakari and you have this, at the end of your turn, your tier 1 minion becomes a tier 3 minion. If you have a plain copy of Varanus, right? If you have one of these. Now, if you have Drakari and a gold copy, your tier 1 minion to the left of this goes up to tier 2, tier 3, and then goes up to tier 4, tier 5. So it'll turn a tier 1 into a tier 5, which means it's turning a tier 3 into a tier 7. And so tier 3 or higher will become a tier 7 next to a golden Varanus and a Drakari. So it's going to be interesting to see if this card is good. I think it has a lot of potential. But as always, it's an RNG card. It's a random transformation. So you very much could just be getting minions that you don't want. Like, a Thorum might not even play their own Varanus. In duos, a Thorum might give the Varanus to their partner, so their partner can start getting stuff. Yeah, if you're playing Goya or you're playing a support board where you have a Well-Wisher, you can just, you know, get high tier minions and then Well-Wish them off your board. Alright. Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes is the hero where you roll that 6-sided die and you get extra gold at the beginning of your turn, and then that hero power locks for that many turns. We have Boxcars, a tier 4 mech. It's a 6/6. At the start of your turn, roll a 6-sided die. Discover a tavern spell of that tier. Free spells is always nice. It's a mech.
So you can put magnetics on it.
Yeah, it's a mech with decent stats, so if there are mechs in the tavern, because sometimes you might be playing Snake Eyes and there's no mechs in the tavern. If there's no mechs in the tavern, unfortunately, this thing isn't going to be as good, because you're not going to be able to get as many stats on it. But if you're playing mechs, you can actually have this thing become a body that's worth keeping on your board, right? Getting free spells. And also, if you just play this in you know, a combo board or in a menagerie board where you have anything that, like, benefits from playing spells, that could be pretty good.
I think it's a good pairing with Hooktail. It's also a good pairing with Charging Zarina. I think a mech board with all Divine Shields paired this with Charging Zarina is, it's very good.
Yeah. It would be a good pairing with Hooktail, but we have some sad news regarding Hooktail and some other minions that are leaving in a little bit. Yeah, sorry, Hooktail fans. Dr. Holiday. Dr. Holiday is the hero that you spend 1 gold to get a random spell. Well, now you get the 9 Frogs. It's a 9/9 beast. After you buy a minion, get a random tavern spell of the same tier, up to 9 times. When you make it golden, it will reset, I assume. It wouldn't make sense otherwise. But when you make it golden, it does the same thing. Well, it does the same thing. You get 2 random tavern spells from the same tier. So this is a tier 5, meaning you probably won't be able to get it super quickly. So you probably will get to the point where you're at tier 6 and you can buy tier 6 minions. And that'll unlock, you know, some of those really powerful tier 6 spells. Sometimes you're playing a game where you've had something really strong early game and it's a body, but it's not something you really want to keep, like a passenger, right? You might have like a 40-40 passenger that's decent stats, but you really don't want to keep it because you're trying to, you know, play a different tribe. If you're in late game and you're buying those tier 6 minions, you're way more likely to get a mutinous spell. That spell that lets you consume a minion and give its stats to something else. That's a card that you can get a lot easier now. I think this is a pretty good buddy. I'm looking forward to getting a chance to use that. Alright, Tathlon Blood Watcher. This is the hero who every third spell costs 1 gold less. We'll be seeing in a little bit. They did change that hero power. The new hero power actually makes it so every 4th spell you buy is just free, which I like better. I think that's a better hero power than getting the 1 gold off, because I think you can cycle that and get some, you know, really expensive spells for free now. I think that's a much cooler way to use that hero power. I think it's much stronger. But they have Reliquary Attendant. It's an elemental. It's a 7/4. Once per turn, after you cast a tavern spell, get a new copy of it. This is pretty good. The golden version is after you cast a spell, get 2 new copies of it. So this is kind of like Storm Splitter for solos. It's a way to duplicate spells, which I think is just really, really cool. It also, I mean, this comboed with Storm Splitter too. You play something, get extra copies. You pass one of those, get more extra copies. You can get some nice spells and just go ham with that, which I think is going to be really cool. It's an elemental type too, so again, typing is nice, particularly with something like Living Azurite. You have Living Azurite, you're going to want to be playing spells anyway. This is going to allow you to just pump out extra spells. So I think you're going to see a lot more elemental players with Tathlon. Alright, the Nameless One. The Nameless One is getting the Faceless One, which is a non-typed minion. But as you can see, it doesn't really matter because this is a Battlecry minion. And this is a Battlecry, get the buddy of your teammate's hero power. So this basically is a minion. You play it, the Battlecry gives you the buddy that you would get if you were playing the other hero, which, you know, the Nameless One is basically it's a duos only hero, and it copies the hero power of your partner. So it basically turns you into a copy of your partner. And this buddy is going to give you the buddy that you would have gotten, right? That's how it works. The interesting thing here is that it's a Battlecry. So Battlecries can be triggered multiple times if you have a Bran, or, you know, there's a Rylak or something that's going to be making this go off. You can be just getting a bunch of copies of the buddy. So you could be getting multiple golden copies by just getting multiple copies. And the golden version gets 2 buddies of your teammate's hero power. This is an interesting card, I think, for sure. I think this is going to now have some play where you're thinking about whether your partner's buddy is really strong. Like, would it be a strong buddy to have multiple copies on the board of? Then you could specifically pick Faceless One because you want to be generating a bunch of those buddies. You leave it on your board. You have a Bran, you get multiple copies. You have like a Young Murkai, a Rylak. What is that Naga Dragon? The I almost forgot the name of that.
Draconic Death Scale.
Draconic Death Scale, yes. You know, you play any of those and you can just keep getting more buddies. So I think this one is really interesting. Alright, we have Cho and Gaul, and we can kind of show these together, but they work exactly the same. I believe they work exactly the same. Yeah, the text is exactly the same. Cho and Gaul players will each, for their buddy, get Halfus. And you have Halfus the Mighty and Halfus the Wise. And how Halfus works is they are a 5/5 non-typed minion, but at the start of your turn, you discover a minion of your tier. That's already pretty good. And then there's a 50% chance to pass it. So this is where the ogre typing RNG comes in. If you don't play a lot of standard, ogre cards in standard basically always have a 50% chance to do not what you want it to do. So they're keeping in with the theme here. You could discover a minion that you want to pass anyway, and the pass triggers, and that's great. But you could discover a minion that you want, and then it gets passed, and you have to, your partner has to spend a gold to send it to you. Overall, I don't think that really matters. I think having to spend the gold, right, on that is not a big deal. I think discovering a minion of your tier every turn is just good. Also, this is a tier 4. It's mid-range. It's not going to be too difficult to get. And once you get the golden version, you're getting 2 minions of your tier. And you're both having, like, keep in mind, you're both going to get this effect, right? Or if you wanted to, and one person wants to play a strong tribe, you could just pass both of these to one player. So one player could be doing all of the discovering. I think there's some interesting things that you're going to be able to do with this. It's unfortunate that it's not typed. I mean, it makes sense that it's not typed, but whenever a minion's not typed, it just makes it not as strong as if it was. All right, Madam Goya. Madam Goya is giving us Mr. Chu, a tier 4 minion, also not typed. It's a 5/6 that says once per turn, after you pass a minion, get a plain copy of it. Wow. Okay.
That's a huge buff to Goya.
That's really good. That's basically like the tier 7 Zarjira, right? The Naga. But the other side of it is Zarjira only works with minions in the tavern. Goya can pass anything, including board minions. So if a Goya has a minion that Goya wants to make golden, Goya passes that minion to the partner, gets a copy, the partner passes it back, and now Goya has 2 copies. So this is a way for Goya players to ensure that you can get early gold or early doubles, and then you just pass it again the next turn, and you have your golden. Now, if you have a golden Mr. Chu, after you pass, you get 2 copies of it. So you basically become a golden minion generator. That's wild. That's really good.
Really good.
Yeah, I think Goya is already a very strong duos hero, and I think this is just makes them really, really, really strong. Now, granted, a lot of heroes are like every hero basically is getting a buff through buddies, so we'll see how it holds up. But that's fantastic in my opinion. I'm really excited to play that. All right, Floop, Flobinus Floop. Floop is getting a glorious Gloopling, which is a tier 5. Tier 5 means I better expect this to be a good minion. This is a good minion. This is a tier 5, 5/1. At the start of your turn, get a plain copy of your teammate's highest tier minion, except buddies. And then also the golden version of this, you get 2 copies of the highest tier minion. Floop, I think, went from a character that a lot of people struggle to play correctly, who I think is already pretty strong in a lot of specific scenarios. I think Floop is now just very, very, very good at being that support board. Think about this paired with a Thorum, right? Thorum gets their tier 7, and Glorious Goopling is just giving you copies of that tier 7. And with Thorum's buddy that's, making minions go up a tier, getting, like, higher, better cards. I think that's going to be a really strong combo you'll see in duos, is Thorum and Floop. But I think Floop is just going to be good with just about anybody. The fact that you're going to be able to get copies of things and get early goldens, right? Well, I guess it's not necessarily early because this is a tier 5. But early enough, getting goldens and things is going to be pretty good. All right, well, we already had buddies for all of our existing heroes, and they did make some changes. So we'll take a look at these. All right, we're starting with Overlord Sarafong, who has Dranosh Sarfang. Oh, I guess it is Sarfang. I've said this wrong this entire time. I've always said Sarfong, and it's just Sarfang.
Yep.
Wow, I learned something. All right, this is a tier 4 2/2. After you buy a minion, gain its stats. Okay, This is pretty decent, I think, in the mid game. It's a non-typed minion, which means it doesn't really synergize with a typing board. Like if you're trying to play mechs, which I think Sarfang is normally the strongest with, because you can get those magnetics really bulky with the hero power. For those of you that aren't familiar with the hero power adds, okay, it starts with +2/+1, and you can spend gold to make a minion in the tavern get a buff. But you're gonna say that +2/+1 sounds absolutely terrible, which it is. But what happens is every 3 turns, that amount doubles. So in 3 turns, it becomes a 4+4+2, and then it becomes +8+4, and then +16+8, and so on and so forth. So if you have Sarfang in the late game, your magnetics can get really big because you're hero powering them and you're buying them. So I guess with this buddy, you're gonna make a minion big, you're gonna buy it. The stats are gonna also go on this thing. So I guess it's okay. It's not a mech, but it's kind of, if you're playing it in that mech board where you're buffing a minion and then buying it, you would be putting that magnetic on a minion anyway, right? Whereas this is kind of like its own special mech that got magnetized when you bought that magnetic, if you want to look at it that way. The only thing is, it's not getting magnetized, so something like Utility Drone is not going to continue to buff this. I don't know. I think the gold version might make this card playable still, because you can see after you buy a minion, you're going to gain double its stats.
I think this buddy is gonna shine with Living Azurite build.
Yeah, I can see that. If you're getting some good tavern scaling and you have this, and you're getting those extra stats and you're buying it, even without the hero power, right?
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty.
You can have hero power on top of the Living Azurite buff.
That's pretty strong. So I guess anything.
Yeah.
If you're playing Sarfang and there's no mechs, or you're just not getting lucky, you could just go tavern scaling. That is true. Alright, Ragnaros the Fire Lord has Lucifron, which is basically the same exact card as Drakari Enchantress. Your end of turn effects trigger an extra time. Although it actually, you know what? I realize they changed this, and I was like, is it a stat change? But I think the change here is the wording. It is, I'm wrong. It is not the exact same. If you notice, your end of turn effects trigger an extra time. And Drakari is worded that your end of turn effects trigger twice. So that means if you're playing an end of turn build, and you already have a Drakari, and you get a Lucifron, they will stack. So that's pretty cool. So if you had a golden Drakari and a golden Lucifron, and you're playing some kind of young Murkai build, well, your end of turn effects are going to go off, I think it's 5, right? Because it's going to go off 1, 2, 3 from the Drakari. Like, well, 1 normally, 2 extra times from the Drakari, and 2 extra times from Lucifron. So math is fun. So it's 5 times total, which is still pretty good, right? So if you have a golden Lucifron, a golden Drakari, and a golden Bran taking up 3 spots, which is kind of a lot, but depending on what your battle cries are, you would have everything going off. You just double that. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 would be 15. So if you have all 3 golden Lucifron, golden Drakari, golden Bran, you would have your battle cries going off 15 times. Don't even get me started if you get a golden young Murkai or a golden battle cry. Then you're, that's wild. Like you could have, I think, golden Lucifron, golden Drakari, golden Bran taking up 3 spots, but you have a golden young Murkai with let's say you have Murky, right? You have golden Murkias or just something else. That's a good battle cry. I'm sure there's other good battle cries. That could be wild. Caligos, yeah. Right? These aren't dragons, and you're not running a lot of dragons, but you could run Caligos with 2 battle cry dragons, and at least your dragons are getting really beefy. I think ideally you want something that's gonna buff your whole board though. this could just be good with Quillbore, because as you're gonna see, Quillbore got Gem Smuggler removed. Early spoiler for you, sorry. But Gem Smuggler is no more, which means you're basically relying on Charla and a new minion that we'll show you. You're relying on Charla to do the blood gems across. So now you can stack Lucifron and Drakari and have your Charla and have it be going off extra times at the end of turn. So it could be okay. We'll see. We'll see. I think it's kind of situational. Overall, I'm not sure if it's that much stronger. I think you really need to stack it with end of turn and a Drakari to make it really worth it. Alright, Arana Starseeker gets Sklib the Demon Hunter, and this is changed to after you buy a card, your next refresh costs 0. Arana is the hero who, after they, I believe it's after they have their minions attack a certain amount of time, their hero power changes so that they then can just get a minion for free every turn. The first minion they buy is free. So this is interesting, I guess. Well, the thing to look at here is after you buy a card, your next refresh is 0. I guess it's kind of like that recycler elemental, but for everyone. But also it's not typed, which that already makes it not as great. I don't know about this. It definitely doesn't seem as strong. I think the strength comes from the fact that it's a tier 3, so you're going to be able to get it much earlier, and getting some free refreshes in early to get the cards you want. That could be cool, but this does not seem like the kind of card you keep till the end of the game. But hey, in the mid game, could be pretty good for setting up your board. All right, Alistraza, we had a change here. This used to just be a battle cry. Now it is a battle cry and a start of combat minion, which I think makes this buddy way better in the current meta with combat stat dragons. And that is give your other minions +2/+2. That's the other thing. It's give your minions +2/+2. It's not dragons. That's cool. So you can run this no matter what you're playing, and you will still get benefit from it. You're not locked into playing dragons. Although, as we'll see, if you're playing Alistraza, you're basically going to be playing dragons. We'll look at Alistraza in a little bit, but I think they fixed Alistraza. We'll show you in a second. Alright, Zephyrus. Zephyrus is a tier 4 elemental, gets Fire Res. This is basically the same minion. They said it's primarily a text update, but something important to note is that it is not going to give you a copy of a Ziliax. Okay, so when you play it, the battle cry is discover a plain copy of a different minion that you have exactly one of. So this won't trigger with Ziliax modules, and it won't count itself. So basically, you can get copies of minions. It being a battle cry is good too, because you can trigger it using battle cry triggers. But this is just a way to get an extra copy of something. If you remember how Zephyrus works, Zephyrus is hero power. If you have 2 copies of something, you can just get the third. For 3 gold, you get a copy of the third one. You get your golden minion, right? That's how that works. So this minion is supposed to allow you to battle cry a minion you have one of, get that second copy so that you can hero power and get a golden version. I think the stronger thing about this is just the card generation. The card generation from having some kind of battle trigger just going off and giving you copies over and over and over and over again. I think that's what it's going to be. Although, this is more likely going to be on a support board, I think. Because once you get a copy, you'll have 2 copies. So you'll need to get rid of it for this to... Because if you just have a handful, you have all goldens or whatever, it's not going to work. Oh, actually, just kidding. It will count golden minions. So if you get golden minions now, this can actually copy the golden minion, which is kind of cool. Alright, AFK snack vendor now at the end of your turn gives your tier 3 minions +1/+2. I think this is just a buff to the +1/+2. I think this used to be +1/+1. And now it's just +1/+2. Pretty straightforward. It's also a tier 3, so it buffs itself. That's pretty good. Death Speaker Blackthorn gets Death's Head Sage. It's a tier 5 undead Quillbore. After you get a blood gem, get an extra one. I don't know if there's something with this that I'm not seeing, but this seems really underwhelming, especially for a tier 5. When you get a blood gem, get an extra one. I feel like majority of like blood gem generation cards, you're already playing a build where you have like a mangled bandit, which is, you know, giving you extra blood gems. You get a gold one. Like, I feel like you already are getting hands full of blood gems, right? So playing this, it just kind of replaces one of those cards. Being a tier 5 seems, it just doesn't, it seems too high tier. This seems like this should be a tier 3. Again, unless there's something I'm missing. I think a tier 5 minion would be after you play a blood gem, play an extra one, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be a ridiculously good card, because that would, you know, that would synergize with Charla, right? Or any other minion that would play a blood gem, right? I just don't see why you would want this on your board instead of any of the other Quillbore. But the thing is, you already have earlier tier minions that are getting you blood gems. I don't know. That's just the way I see it. This seems like it's not necessary in a Quillbore build. Alright, Queen Azshara gets Imperial Defender. Whenever you cast a spellcraft spell on a different friendly minion, you also cast it on this. Just good Naga synergy, I guess. If you're playing
Crooner build.
yeah, like a Crooner build or something, this thing is gonna get extra beefy stats for you. That's pretty good. And the golden version will cast it on it twice. You know what I wonder, which seems not good. What if you have a Well-Wisher and you play a Well-Wisher on something in your tavern? It would, in theory, send the Imperial Defender too, right?
It's a spell on a friendly minion.
If you Well-Wish something off your board, though, too.
You're bored, yeah.
Oh, so, okay, so the tavern, it wouldn't do that. But friendly minion. So if you Well-Wished another minion off your board for some reason, it would also send this.
I don't know. Hopefully not.
I mean, the way it's worded, it seems like it
Yeah.
would, right? Like, so that's, I feel like we're gonna see some people not realizing that and trying to Well-Wish something off their board and then sending this and not having enough gold to send it back and having a really bad time. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. All right, Sire Denathrius, the shady aristocrat, which has been their buddy, has gotten a change. This used to be a battle cry. Whenever you would battle cry, you would get a quest. You would discover a quest, and you would complete it to get an 8 gold coin pouch, which just, you play that and you get 8 gold that turn, which is great, right? When it was a battle cry, you could play it with battle cry triggers and just get a bunch of different quests stacked up. And you could be getting a whole bunch of gold. It was an extremely strong card. It was fantastic. Now they changed it a bit. When you sell this, discover a quest completed to get an 8 gold coin pouch. So this is definitely a nerf to Denathrius's buddy. I don't know if this buddy was absurdly strong or something, but I don't know. I think as it is, it's pretty good. It's not a bad buddy. You have to keep in mind every single buddy that exists is in the buddy pool for ETC. Although there might be some they don't put in the pool for reasons. This being in the ETC pool, you would still grab it, right? Like you would grab this in the discover a buddy, or in the quest where you get to discover a buddy every turn. Like you would grab this just to get the extra gold. It's definitely not bad. All right, Terran Gorefiend gets Shadowy Construct. This is a 5/5 undead, and its death rattle. Give this minion's maximum stats to another friendly minion. That seems just really, really, really good. And there's two situations that immediately come to mind that make me think about this being good. One of them is if you're running this in a dragon board. This dies in combat, gives its stats in combat to a Terragosa, or a minion adjacent to a persistent poet, and it gets to keep those stats forever. The other is if you're playing this next to a Kel'Thuzad, because then the Kel'Thuzad is going to destroy this at the end of turn. and it's going to bring it back. So you're going to get basically this minion stats to go on something else. It's kind of like what happens with Nightmane Ignited right now, except it's both stats. It's health and attack. And having health and attack go on your minions is pretty good, because the whole point of Nightbane is you can give a minion, 5,000 attack, but if it has 2 HP, it doesn't really matter, right? Because it's just going to die. But now, if you get this thing going, you can just start making your minions pretty beefy. If you can get stats on this thing, you can get stats otherwise. And then if you're able to get multiple copies of this, if you're able to give this thing a reborn, and then you use like a grave robber to get an extra copy, and then you have these things bouncing on each other with a Kel'Thuzad or whatever it might be, that's pretty good. I think you're going to be able to see some fun play with this for sure. Alright, Queen Wag Toggle gets Elder Tagawag. This is a start of combat. If you control 4 minions with different types, gain your minions' highest attack and health. Sure. I guess there's some scenarios. I don't know where Menagerie is right now. I think they're maybe trying to push Menagerie a bit more, but you just, as things currently are, you don't see Menagerie. So I don't know how strong this is going to be. This used to be a minion that was a battle cry, gain a gold coin for every different type you have. Yeah, I don't know. They really want us to play Menagerie with this card. Yeah. And I don't know. It is yet to be seen if this will be good or not. I don't know. All right, Shudderwalk got Muckslinger, which is a tier 5. It is a battlecry minion, not typed. I don't know how to feel about this. This minion got a change. So this minion before used to be one of my favorite buddies. It was a buddy where the text essentially read, when you buy a minion from the tavern, add a battlecry minion to the tavern. And I think it was like also give it stats. So basically what that meant is if you had a Muckslinger on your board, you would just be able to cycle battle cries, which was really awesome if you had like a Bran or something, and you were just getting a bunch of extra stats, and you were just like cycling battle cries over and over again. Well, now it lost that completely, and now it's just a battle cry that gets a random battle cry. Now it is a Shudderwalk minion, so that means that it's going to be played on Shudderwalk boards primarily, and you'll be able to hero power this to get another battle cry minion. I don't know how good that is, because if you use the hero power on Muckslinger to get a battlecry minion, and then you play that battlecry minion, you can't hero power again, right?
Yeah.
I think something that would be really interesting on this card, because it's Shudderwalk, would be battlecry, get a random battlecry minion, and refresh your hero's hero power. I think that could be cool, because then you would play it, get a battlecry minion, and then get your hero power again, to be able to play on that minion you just got if you want to. I don't see that being really broken or anything. That feels like kind of fair. I don't know.
Start passing it to other heroes and refreshing their hero power.
I mean, that's true. And I guess it would depend on the hero, right? Because if you're passing this to a Reno, obviously that's gonna be gonna be busted. So I don't know. This is interesting. Yeah, maybe that could break the game. Maybe
I think this card is just to fish for a battle cry that you want to be proccing every turn with Shudderwalk.
Yeah, that's I guess that's it. But it just
underwhelming.
I think the tier 5 is what loses me, right? Like,
yeah. It is definitely up there.
Why is this a tier 5? Why isn't this a tier 3? Right? Like this feels like I'm Shudderwalk. It's been like 3 turns and I haven't got anything good. I can get my Muckslinger, and now I can like try to get battle cries off my Muckslinger. That feels like where it belongs. I don't think it belongs on tier 5. But who knows? Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's some god tier way to play this card that just breaks the game.
5 hand plays.
Yeah, I don't know. Like we'll see. We'll see. All right, Yogg-Saron Hope's End gets Acolyte of Yogg-Saron. So this card used to be, when you sold it, it would spin the wheel of Yogg-Saron, which basically just gave you a one-off freebie. Now it's a better question mark? I don't know. I'm always scared by the Wheel of Yogg-Saron. Fen loves.
Yeah, I absolutely love the Wheel of Yogg-Saron. I love me some RNG, so I'm really excited about this, buddy. Especially the start of every turn. It's exciting.
I think it can be fun, but Yogg-Saron, unless they're changing this, I'm not quite sure here. Unless they're changing it, there's a a piece of the wheel that basically gets all your minions, gives them +3/+3, and then shuffles the stats, which is absolutely game losing, like, most of the time. Because all of a sudden, this minion that you like,
Yeah, like if you had a big cleave or something, it could all of a sudden take the stats off something that was a lot lower. So
yeah, now it's a 3/3 cleave in the front of your board when it used to be like a 400, right? And then something else that doesn't matter. So
that's also where the RNG comes in. You could have a small cleave that you just played that turn, and then all of a sudden it becomes a 200/200 off something you've had on your board getting buffed. So
it's true. It's very scary. I don't know. So this Acolyte of Yogg-Saron is making that wheel spin at the start of every turn. Because normally, when does it spin? Is it at the end of your turn? Or at the start of your turn?
I think it was always start of your turn.
The hero power is...
I believe. Yeah.
Alright, so we looked it up and I am totally wrong. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Yogg-Saron Hope's End is the hero power that steals a random minion from the tavern and gives it +2/+2. I was thinking of the quest reward that would spin the Wheel of Yogg-Saron, I think, at the start of every turn. So this, basically having this on your board, gives you that quest reward where you spin the wheel at the start of every turn. That's what that is doing. So that's, I mean, that's pretty cool. I think this, the Pyro buff is probably the best one, potentially. It just starts casting on any minion that's in the tavern or on your board, or it can hit Bob or you as a hero. And so what happens is every time it procs on something, it gives it +10/+10. So I've had some really lucky Pyro buffs where my whole board is just going up, a bunch of times, like 10 times. And then it hits, a hero and it ends, right? But I've also had times where it casts and then it immediately hits my hero and I don't get anything off of it. That's RNG, right? I guess that's the whole thing. You could either get some wild RNG and get some game-breaking stuff or not. So this will be an interesting hero. If you like RNG, you'll love this. If you don't, you probably don't play Yogg-Saron. Alright, Dancing Daryl gets Asher, the Haberdasher. Now, this was a minion that I believe before it just was like after you sell a minion, gain +1/+1, which it was okay. But now I think this minion is way, 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 way better. And that is, it reads, after you sell a minion, gain a +1/+1 hat that passes to a friendly minion when sold. So basically the way Dancing Daryl works already is every time you buy a minion, it gets +1/+1 through a hat enchantment, which when you sell it, the hat passes on to another minion on your board. So basically Dancing Daryl is a way to buff your board while still cycling things out and keeping those stats by passing the stats on to other things. This buddy now is basically a way to hold on to hats. You get extra hats, actually, right? So every time you sell a minion, the hat goes to something else, and this generates a brand new hat out of nowhere. So this just gets a bunch of hats, gets all beefy, you sell it, and put all those stats onto something else. That's nice for endgame, when you don't care about Asher the Haberdasher, and you want to have something that synergizes with your tribe. I like this change a lot. Alright, Ysera. Ysera has a Valithria Dreamwalker, and this is whenever a dragon enters your warband or the tavern, gain +1/+1. I can't remember what Ysera's old buddy did, but this is pretty good. So this basically, anytime you play a dragon, this is getting buffed. Anytime you're refreshing and you get dragons, this is getting buffs. So if you're getting like free refreshes, or you just, are refreshing already looking for dragons, this thing's just getting buffed on your board. Is this a game changer? No, I don't think so. But it's a tier 4. So this can be a buddy that helps you stay alive. Other than that, it's not really an endgame dragon. If you end up getting a lot of stats on it through something, then sure, maybe you keep it. But it's It's not an endgame minion, that's for sure. Alright, Malagos got a buddy, and I don't remember what Malagos's buddy was, but I don't remember this, so I think this is completely new. Nexus Lord, it has Arcane Alteration, which is Malagos's hero power. Replaces with a card from 1 tier higher. That's pretty good. So Malagos already is able to just choose a minion. It can be on the board, it can be in the tavern, and replace it with another minion of the same tier. So now you're basically turning Malagos kind of into Galakron Light, where you can hit something and it turns into a random minion from a higher tier. Basically the Faceless Disciple battle cry. You can use this on your board. You can use this in the tavern. So that's interesting. The only thing you can't use it on is the Nexus Lord themselves, because it would change. Or could you use it on there? I guess you could. It would replace it and then it would be done. It would be gone forever. So you could do that if you want to. And a golden one replaces a card with 2 tiers higher. So you can turn 4 into a tier 6. Interesting. But also not an endgame card. Like you're getting rid of this at some point. It's a tier 4, so that's fine. Alright, Lord Barov has Barov's Apprentice. After you play a coin, gain 1 gold. So this basically means your coins are going to give you 2 gold instead of 1. Yeah, that's okay. This can synergize with any other minions that are giving you coins. I would say this would be a great synergy with Long John Copper, but as you will find out shortly, Long John Copper is not long for Battlegrounds.
Gone.
Yes, Long John is long gone. Alright, Rakanishu got a buddy that at the end of your turn, get 2 Lantern Lights that give a minion stats equal to your tier. Lantern Light is the spell down here. It's already in the game. It's a tier 2, 1 cost spell. These are obviously the best when you're on tier 6. It gives your minions 6/6. If you're on tier 2, it gives your minions 2/2. So at worst, you get this on tier 2 and it's a banana, essentially. And as you go up, it becomes better. I think this is good. I think this is, or I should say, I think this is a good buff to this card. Because what happens now is this card is going to give you 2 spells every turn. It's end of turn, so it will synergize with a Drakari or something like that. So you can get multiple. Also, it's going to synergize with minions that get buffed every time you play a spell, right? Anything that likes you playing spells or likes you adding cards to your hand, this is going to be pretty good. Alright, Ticketus, the ticket collector, when you sell this, discover a Dark Moon prize from the next tier. It says this is basically the same card. There was just a wording change. Alright, Vol'jin has Master Gadrin, which is a 6/5 non-typed minion, but it says minions targeted by a Spirit Swap, which is Vol'jin's hero power, also gain each other's health.
Which is crazy, because if you have a giant mech board or a giant cool board, this just seems extremely broken.
Yeah. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, Spirit Swap, Vol'jin's hero power, normally lets you pick a minion and pick another minion, and they gain each other's attack. So if they both had 50 attack, well then they get 100 attack each, right? Instead of the 50 that they had, because they're just adding each other's attack. So now, by adding health, like Fen just said, you have a giant minion, you have another giant minion, they just combine. You get 2 even bigger minions, right? Like, if you're playing a board that has big stats, this is really good. Alright, Lich Baziel has Unearthed Underling. This is an undead that says whenever your hero takes damage, rewind it and gain stats equal to that amount. A few things here. Baziel is a hero that I don't really like to take because it locks you into playing demons. Because you take damage, like by using the hero power, you spend 2 gold and then you get a card and it costs health instead of gold. I don't know. I've never liked the hero. I know there's ways to play the hero and do really well and win, but it always just kind of like turned me off, the whole like taking self damage and then eventually you're not going to want to use the hero power. You play it with demons because you want a soul rewinder. Well, now This buddy means that you're basically always guaranteed to get a card that will stop you from taking damage. Already, that's good, okay? The thing that's confusing to me is this is an undead. Whenever your hero takes damage, rewind it and gain stats equal to that amount. This card is really good in self-damaging demon builds, but it's an undead. I don't think self-damaging demons are in a particularly strong place. I think consume tavern scaling demons are far better. This being an undead just means that it won't synergize with something like a famished fellbot. I think this would be better as a demon type. I think that would be nice because this, like, I'm trying to think of any situation where this matters with undead. It doesn't really. Like, if you have demons in the tavern and you're Baziel, you're not playing undead, right? Like, there's no way you want to play undead. But I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. I think this is severely hindered by not just being a demon. I think it should be. Alright, Deathwing gets a dragon buddy, Sinestra. Whenever a friendly minion gains attack during combat, give it +1 health permanently. This basically is a better whelp smuggler. That's what this becomes. And it's dragon type, so it's also gaining buffs. So that's pretty nice. Also, it's whenever a friendly minion gains attack during combat, so it will completely synergize with Deathwing's hero power, which basically means everything gains attack, right? Both boards gain attack at the start of combat. That's permanent. Well, this means they also gain health, which is pretty cool. The golden version means they gain 2 health. But also it's just your friendly minions. Like your opponent isn't gaining health. This isn't like helping your opponent too. It's just helping you. I think Deathwing Dragon, this is going to be really strong. Because that's the biggest problem with Deathwing Dragon, is getting a bunch of attack and getting no health. So we'll see how this helps that. It also is like not just the hero power. So this means something like, gosh, what is that? A Glim Guardian, like a tier 1 Glim Guardian next to a poet. That thing's just going to grow really big and it's going to have a lot of health, which means it gets to attack more, which means it gets to grow more. So I think this is a buff to grab Glim. If you're playing Deathwing, like, you absolutely need to grab a Glim. Tier 1. Like turn 1 if you can. Alright, Greybow. Wandering Trance.
We have not seen in duos.
Yeah, we haven't seen Greybow in a while. Same with Arana earlier. I don't know if it's just our luck. I doubt it, but I haven't seen anyone play Greybow or Arana.
Greybow is in the pool.
And I don't remember the Blizzard devs ever saying that they were not in the tavern, so I'm not sure what happened there. Greybow gets a Wandering Trance, which is whenever a friendly taunt minion is attacked, give your minions +1 attack permanently. So this is kind of like that I think it's Unforgiving Trant, the tier 5 card that when it takes damage, everything gets permanent attack. This basically synergizes with that, and it also synergizes if you just make your board taunted, right? You don't want this to be taunted, ideally, because you want it to stay alive as long as possible. But yeah, this could scale your tavern pretty quickly. This is interesting to see. Alright, gamers, that is all of the new buddies. That was really cool to see. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to go over all the new hero pool changes and minions in a separate video, so make sure you watch that one too. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribed. Let us know in the comments what you're excited for. We're excited for a whole bunch, and we'd love to chat with you about it. Thank you.